You can feel it in your bones, can't you? Something deep within you has been stirring, like a silent storm waiting to break. The world around you may look the same, but you are not. There's a sacred shift happening beneath the surface. You've been walking through fire, through wilderness, through confusion that most people couldn't survive, and yet you're still standing. This message isn't for everyone. It's for the one who's been asking, why has everything been so heavy lately? Why the delays? Why the isolation? Why the emotional storms that seem to have no name? The answer is simple. You were being prepared for transformation, and that transformation begins tonight. You've carried burdens silently, suffered betrayals quietly, and endured seasons that made no sense. But here's what the universe, what the divine, what your creator has been orchestrating all along, a radical shift in your identity, purpose, and power. This is not just a turning point. This is your rebirth. And if you're reading this or watching this video, it's not by coincidence. It's by calling. Watch this video until the end. And when you feel in your soul, write your most sincere wish in the comments along with 777 to release your intention into the atmosphere. The energy you carry is powerful. When you align with your call, the universe responds to you. This moment has always been created for you. If you like the video and it enlightens you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. People around you may have underestimated your silence, confused your isolation with weakness. But what they didn't know is that you were cocooning. While others were moving loudly, you were growing divine stillness. And tonight, everything changes. The old version of you is done. The you that overexplained, overgave, overcompensated, overthought, gone. Burned away by every storm you endured. This new season doesn't require explanation. It requires embodiment. And you're stepping into that embodiment now. You are not who you were last year, not even who you were last month. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you've shifted. The signs have been around you. The people who walked away, the dreams that ended, the internal earthquakes that left you shattered but strangely free. Those were all divine cues. Transformation doesn't always arrive gently. Sometimes it's disguised as heartbreak, as endings, as silence. But you, yes, you, were always meant to emerge in the fire untouchable. The pain you went through wasn't punishment. It was prophecy. It was the proof that you are not ordinary. If you were, your life would have been easier. You would have blended in, coasted along, never asked the deeper questions. But that's not who you are. You were chosen to wake up, chosen to break cycles, chosen to carry light into places where darkness thought it had won. And that's why the road was hard, because what's inside of you is rare, and heaven doesn't put rare jewels on display too early. That's why you were hidden. That's why doors didn't open when you begged. That's why people you loved couldn't love you back. Because you weren't being buried, you were being planted. And now, finally, you're rising. You've outgrown your old story. It doesn't fit anymore. You were never meant to remain in survival mode, just getting by, hoping things would get better. No, tonight is the line in the sand. Tonight, you stop surviving and start embodying everything you were destined to be. The warrior, the healer, the seer, the messenger. You didn't come this far just to break. You came this far to rise. What's about to unfold will surprise even you. The people who counted you out will have no choice but to witness what you become. And they won't understand it, because this transformation isn't logical. It's divine. It's orchestrated. It's sealed. You don't have to explain anything anymore. Not your silence. Not your process. Not your calling. From here on out, let your glow speak. Let your energy speak. Let your elevation speak. You might be wondering why the intensity increased just before this moment. Why the storms got louder. Why your mind felt like a battlefield and your heart like a war zone. It's because right before a chosen one rises, the enemy throws everything they have. The distractions, the self-doubt, the confusion. It wasn't coincidence. It was the resistance that comes before the revelation. But even that couldn't stop what's coming for you. What's meant for you isn't in someone else's hands. It's not dependent on approval, acceptance, or timing you can control. What's yours is already stamped in the unseen. You're not waiting on it. It's waiting on you. That's why tonight feels different. That's why your spirit is on edge, your body restless, your dreams more vivid. It's a spiritual preparation. You've crossed thresholds you didn't even know existed. You've been climbing mountains blindfolded, led only by faith and inner knowing. And even when no one clapped, even when no one validated you, you kept going. That's how the chosen ones move. Not for attention, not for applause, but for purpose. This next version of you doesn't negotiate with fear. You've danced with too much darkness to be intimidated now. You've sat in silence long enough to know how to hear your soul clearly. And your soul is saying it's time. No more shrinking. No more trying to fit into rooms your spirit outgrew. No more pretending you don't see what you see, know what you know, or feel what you feel. That was survival. This is awakening. There are some people who will be uncomfortable with your transformation, not because you did anything wrong, but because your healing confronts their wounds. Your clarity makes their chaos harder to ignore. Your rise forces them to look at their own stagnation. But that's not your burden to carry. Let them adjust or remove themselves. Your assignment isn't to stay small for anyone's comfort. It's to honor the divine fire that has kept you alive through everything. This fire within you, it's not anger, it's not rage, it's purpose, it's holy. It's the same fire that kept you breathing when life tried to smother your hope. The same fire that kept you curious when everything around you was closing in. That fire was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to be seen, to guide, to transform. And now that fire is becoming form. The transformation you've been craving won't come from outside. It's not in another relationship, another job, another place. It's inside of you. You're the answer you've been seeking. The miracle you've been praying for is already living in your bones. You don't need permission to be powerful. You don't need proof to be ready. You are the sign. You are the confirmation. You are the shift. Everything around you will begin to reflect that truth. Not immediately, not all at once, but steadily, quietly, powerfully. The way mountains move, slow but irreversible. The way dawn breaks, soft but unstoppable. Tonight is a reset, the remembrance, the return. You're not broken. You're becoming. You're not lost. You're being realigned. You're not late. You're right on divine timing. They told you it was crazy to believe, that your dreams were too wild, your faith too much, your intuition too strange. But they were wrong. What you feel isn't madness. It's magnitude. It's depth. It's truth. And tonight, the world starts catching up to what your spirit always knew. The things that used to trigger you will dissolve. The pain that once paralyzed you will become your power. You'll speak differently, move differently, think differently. Because you're not who you used to be, and that's the point. The cocoon was necessary, but it's not your home. The waiting season was divine, but it's not your destiny. You were never meant to stay hidden. You were never meant to stay silent. You were always meant to become this. And tonight you do. You've come too far to look back now. Too many nights you cried silently. Too many times you questioned if the pain had a point. But what you didn't realize is that while you were breaking, you were also being built. Not into someone who merely survives, but into someone who stands, someone who ignites, someone who leads. The fire didn't come to destroy you. It came to reveal what couldn't be burned. That's why you still have your vision. That's why your heart still aches for more. That's why, even after everything, you're still drawn to the idea that life has more for you, because it does. That persistent whisper in your soul, the one that keeps calling you forward. Even when nothing around you makes sense, that's not a fantasy. That's divine guidance. That's the voice of your calling refusing to be silenced. You've learned the hard way that not everyone is meant to go where you're going. Some were only meant to walk with you for a season, to teach you lessons that couldn't be learned in comfort. And though it hurt, and though you may have begged for some of them to stay, their absence became the very space your transformation needed to grow. You lost what wasn't aligned so that you could discover what's eternal. And now, the path ahead is no longer about proving anything to anyone. It's not about being understood. It's not about being accepted. It's about stepping fully into the person you were always meant to be. unapologetically. You don't have to explain yourself anymore. The right people will recognize your energy before you even speak. They will feel your frequency. They will be drawn to your fire. Not because you try to convince them, but because truth is magnetic. There will still be resistance. The enemy doesn't give up easily. But now, you see for what it is, a distraction. The closer you get to your breakthrough, the louder the noise becomes. But chosen ones don't move based on noise. They move based on knowing. And you know what time it is. You know who you are, and you know what you carry. So stop watering down your presence. Stop over-explaining your purpose. Stop waiting for someone to validate what was already confirmed in your soul. You are the confirmation. You are the clarity. You are the chosen. And your transformation will be your testimony. People who counted you out will be confused. People who betrayed you will be silenced by your fruit. Those who doubted you will have no choice but to watch you rise. But your energy is no longer about proving them wrong. It's about proving your spirit right. You'll begin to notice that certain doors open without you knocking. That people speak your name in rooms you've never entered. That opportunities align not because you chase them, but because you prepared for them. You didn't skip the steps. You didn't shortcut the healing. You didn't avoid the shadows. You faced it all. And now, the light you carry is too pure to be ignored. This season will feel surreal. Like the dreams you wrote in secret are suddenly becoming your new reality. Like the battles that once felt unbearable now make perfect sense. You look back and realize that every detour, every delay, every heartbreak, it all had divine fingerprints on it. Nothing was wasted. The version of you that is rising tonight is not timid. It's not fragile. It's not seeking permission. It's rooted. It's bold. It's deeply aware of its value and unshakable in its direction. And the world won't just notice. You will feel it in how you walk, in how you speak, in what you no longer tolerate, in the silence that no longer scares you, in the peace that doesn't require proof. So when the fear tries to whisper, remind it who you are. When doubt creeps in, remind it who called you. When delays come, remind them that divine timing can't be rushed. You're not behind. You're being launched. And chosen one, this is only the beginning. There's a shift happening around you, even if you can't fully explain it. The air feels different. The things you used to tolerate now feel unbearable. The people you used to chase no longer inspire you. The habits that once comforted you now feel like chains. That's not a breakdown, that's alignment. That's transformation. That's the shedding of an old skin that no longer fits the destiny you're stepping into. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Growth always is. But chosen ones weren't built for comfort. They were shaped for calling. And your calling is bigger than your comfort zone. It's louder than your doubts. It's more persistent than your fears. Every time you thought of giving up, something inside of you refused. That fire, that was never random. That's your soul remembering why it came here. You weren't created to merely exist. You weren't born to repeat the patterns of those before you. You were called to disrupt, to break cycles, to tear down lies that were passed down like truth. That's why your path was so different. That's why you never fit in. You weren't meant to blend. You were meant to blaze. There are things inside of you that this world has never seen before. Visions that feel too big to say out loud. Ideas that make no sense on paper. But the divine doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in destiny. And your destiny isn't up for debate. It doesn't require understanding from those who can't see past their own limitations. It requires obedience from you. Courage, stillness, surrender. That's how you step into it. Don't expect others to clap for a vision they can't comprehend. Don't shrink just because your light makes others squint. You weren't chosen to be comfortable. You were chosen to be radiant. And radiance often comes with rejection. But rejection is just redirection. Every closed door was God protecting what you couldn't yet understand. It's in the silence that you found your voice. It's in the absence that you discovered presence. It's in the emptiness that you met fullness. You were stripped, not to be punished, but to be purified, to be made whole, to be made ready. Because what's coming next can't be carried by who you used to be. You'll no longer need to chase. What's meant for you will start to chase you. Your presence will shift rooms before you speak. Not because you force anything, but because alignment always attracts. You're not becoming powerful. You always were. You're just finally remembering. And that remembering will feel like fire in your bones. A fire that won't let you settle. A fire that wakes you up in the middle of the night. A fire that keeps asking you to trust when everything around you says otherwise. That fire is sacred. It's ancient. It's coded into your very soul. That's why nothing ever fully broke you. That's why every setback only revealed more strength. The people who called you crazy will start to call you brave. The ones who mocked your silence will be stunned by your rise. Not because you sought revenge, but because you chose evolution. You chose healing. You chose purpose over performance. You chose faith when fear made more sense. And now you're walking proof that being counted out means nothing when you've been counted in by God. This next chapter won't need a loud announcement. It'll be felt in your peace. It'll be known by your fruit. It'll be obvious in your energy. You won't need to explain how you got here. Your glow will say everything. Your resilience will speak louder than any introduction. And your transformation will make those who walked away wish they had stayed. But you won't look back with bitterness. You'll look forward with power. You'll walk into rooms with authority, not arrogance. You'll carry your story like a sword, not a scar. You'll move with clarity, no longer confused by noise. You'll stop asking for permission to be the masterpiece you already are. Because chosen one, you were always called, even when no one else could see it. You walked through storms that would have destroyed others. And yet here you are, still breathing, still believing, still rising. That isn't weakness. That's not delusion. That's divine resilience. That's the signature of the called. The world tried to convince you were broken, unstable, irrational. But what they mistook for madness was actually your spirit refusing to conform to a system it was never made for. See, chosen ones feel things deeper. They notice what others miss. They carry burdens that don't belong to them. They dream beyond what seems reasonable. And because of that, they're often misunderstood, labeled, isolated. But isolation isn't punishment. It's preparation. You were set apart not because you were lesser, but because your purpose was greater. You weren't born to echo what's already been said. You were made to speak what's never been voiced. That's why your life felt like contradiction, like being told to stay quiet when your soul was screaming, like being urged to dim when your light was meant to ignite. But now, those contradictions are being clarified. That confusion is giving way to clarity, because your calling is finally catching up to your courage. You may not have all the answers, but your faith is louder than your fear, and that's more than enough. You've been through spiritual warfare in ways others can't imagine. You've battled thoughts that were never yours. You've carried trauma that didn't begin with you. But here's the truth. You broke the cycle. Every tear was part of cleansing. Every sleepless night was part of the awakening. You weren't losing your mind. You were shedding what was never meant to stay. And tonight, something shifts. Not because of external validation. Not because circumstances finally align. But because you've reached a spiritual threshold. Your soul is done apologizing for its brilliance. Your spirit is done shrinking for the comfort of others. Now you rise, not out of revenge, but out of reverence. For yourself, for your calling, for the divine that dwells within you. This transformation isn't just personal, it's generational. You're stepping into a version of yourself that honors every version that came before. The scared child, the silenced teenager, the confused adult. All of them get to rise with you. All of them get to witness this rebirth. You're no longer fragmented. You're whole. And from that wholeness, miracles are born. Watch how people start responding differently to you. Not because you change your face or tone, but because your frequency shifted. When you align with divine truth, it speaks without words. People will feel it before they see it. And those who aren't meant to walk with you anymore, they'll quietly fade. Let them. Their part in your story is over. What's coming next requires room, space, clean energy. You can't carry bitterness into your breakthrough. You can't drag old narratives into new dimensions. This is a reset, a restart, a rebirth, but not into something you've never been, into everything you were always meant to be. The divine didn't forget you. In fact, the silence was the loudest answer. It was God saying, "Be still. I'm doing something in you that can't be rushed." And now it's unfolding, in the quiet ways, in the subtle shifts, in the rising sense that something bigger is calling you. You feel it in your chest, in your bones, in your breath. That pull, that's your future remembering you. Chosen one, this is no longer the season of wondering. This is the season of becoming. You don't need to explain yourself anymore. You don't need to beg for support. You don't need to overcompensate to feel worthy. You are chosen, called, crafted, carried. What's for you cannot be missed. And what missed you was never truly for you. So hold your head higher, stand a little firmer, speak a little bolder. The version of you that fear rejection is gone. What remains is refined, anointed, unshakable. They may have counted you out, but God always had the final word. And that word is about to manifest, loud, clear, and undeniable. They thought they had the final say over your destiny. They mistook your delays for defeat, your silence for surrender, your tears for weakness. But what they couldn't see, what they could never see, was a fire being built inside of you during every setback. A fire they didn't light, and one they'll never be able to extinguish. You weren't abandoned, you were refined. Every door that slammed shut was protection. Every relationship that ended was redirection. Every loss was a lesson wrapped in divine wisdom. You were being shaped in secret. Your foundation was being strengthened beneath the surface. And now you're rising from that hidden place. But this isn't a comeback. This is a coronation. Because chosen ones don't return the same. They evolve. They elevate. They emerge with wisdom in their eyes and purpose in their steps. You're not who you used to be. And that's the beauty of divine transformation. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for approval. It simply happens. Quietly, powerfully, irreversibly. You're stepping into rooms that once overlooked you. Your name is being spoken in spaces you've never entered. Not because you chase visibility, but because you carried authenticity. And real always recognizes real. Even in a world full of noise, truth has a frequency that can't be ignored. They will wonder how you made it. They'll ask how you healed. They'll question how you're glowing when you should be broken. But the answer won't be in your words. It'll be in your energy, in your peace, in your quiet confidence. Because when God marks you, no explanation is necessary. Your presence becomes your proof. Don't be surprised if people try to return now that you've risen. Some will come with smiles, but carry the same old agendas. Stay sharp. Stay centered. Forgiveness doesn't mean access. Love them from a distance if you must, but never shrink again to make anyone comfortable. This level requires your full presence, your full belief in yourself, your full trust in the divine path ahead. You've shed enough. You've sacrificed enough. Now it's time to receive. Not because you begged, but because you believed. Not because you earned it by force, but because it's your inheritance. Your spiritual DNA was never made for average. You weren't built for blending in. You were designed for distinction, for impact, for truth. There's a reason your story couldn't be written like anyone else's. There's a reason the battles you fought were deeper than what most people will ever understand. There's a reason your process felt longer, harder, lonelier. Because what's being born through you isn't ordinary. You're not here to survive. You're here to disrupt, to ignite, to awaken. You carry codes in your soul, truths that this generation is desperate to remember. That's why your presence feels different. That's why your silence speaks louder than noise. That's why the enemy fought so hard to confuse you, to distract you, to convince you to walk away from yourself. But it didn't work. You're still here. And not just here, but clearer, stronger, sharper. This transformation you're going through, it's not surface level. It's cellular, spiritual. It's altering the way you see, think, speak, move. You're no longer responding from trauma. You're responding from truth. You're no longer reaching from lack. You're attracting from alignment. And what's coming next will confirm everything you've felt in your spirit. No more over-explaining. No more people-pleasing. No more second-guessing. You are the confirmation. You are the prophecy fulfilled. You are the answered prayer your ancestors whispered in silence. Chosen one, you've stepped into sacred territory. And from this point on, nothing will ever be the same again. They never understood how you survived what should have shattered you. They saw the fire, but not the furnace. They saw the results, but not the wilderness you had crawled through to get here. That's because transformation doesn't happen under spotlights. It happens in silence, in solitude, in sacred struggle. There were nights where even your prayers trembled, where the only strength you had left was a will to wake up the next day. And you did, again and again, not because it was easy, but because something deeper inside of you refused to break. That thing was purpose. That thing was destiny. That thing was a quiet voice of the divine whispering, "Don't give up. You're not done yet." You didn't just survive for yourself. You survived for everyone who would one day hear your story and believe they could too. Your path was never random. You weren't placed in that family by accident. You didn't experience that heartbreak by coincidence. You weren't left out, overlooked, or underestimated because you lacked value. No, it was the opposite. You were hidden for refinement, covered for protection, silenced so that your inner voice could get louder. And now this is the season where you reclaim your voice, your light, your knowing. The fog is lifting. The lies are dissolving. The mask you once wore to be accepted is falling off, and what's left is truth, pure, unapologetic truth. And when you start walking in that truth, the universe has no choice but to respond. Things that once seemed blocked will flow. People who once ignored you will feel drawn to you. Opportunities that bypass you before will seek you out. Not because you chase them, but because alignment has a frequency, and you're vibrating in it now. That's why everything feels different. That's why you can no longer tolerate the fake, the small, the shallow, because your soul has expanded beyond it. You're not interested in surface conversations, small talk, or half-hearted relationships. You crave depth, presence, authenticity. You want rooms where your soul feels seen, not just your achievements. You want connections that water you, not just applaud you. You've entered a sacred shift. And with that comes sacred responsibility. You'll be called to speak up when others are silent. You'll be asked to hold space when others walk away. You'll be stretched in ways that feel uncomfortable, but necessary. Because leadership isn't about being loud. It's about being aligned. And you've been aligned in private long enough. It's time to be seen. Not for ego, but for impact. Not for clout, but for calling. There are people waiting for you to step fully into who you are. Waiting for your words. Waiting for your healing. Waiting for your light to show them the path through their own darkness. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to be willing to rise. The same grace that carried you this far will meet you at your next step. The same hand that protected you in the storm will elevate you in the sunlight. And the same God who counted you when the world counted you out is not done with you yet. You are still becoming, still unfolding, still awakening. And every part of your story, every loss, every silence, every unseen sacrifice is now becoming the very foundation of the purpose you're about to walk in. So keep going. You're closer than you think. You didn't go through all of that just to return to who you used to be. You didn't cry those tears, endure those battles, and climb out of the pit just to remain small, silent, or unseen. No, your transformation was never about going back. It was always about becoming. Becoming the version of you that was buried under expectation, fear, trauma, and doubt. And now that version is rising. They tried to strip you of your identity. They called you crazy, unstable, overly sensitive. But they didn't know that your sensitivity was a gift, that your perception was divine, that your intuition was tuned into something far greater than the noise around you. You weren't broken. You were being awakened. The pain didn't destroy you. It revealed you. And now, your clarity is sharper than ever. You've stepped out of survival and into sacred remembrance. You no longer seek validation from the same systems that tried to erase you. You no longer beg for a seat at tables that never honored your presence. Because now you are the table. You are the presence. You are the light in dark rooms, the calm in chaos, the voice in silence. The truth is, your life was never about proving yourself to them. It was about proving to yourself that you were never crazy, never lost, never weak. You were called, and that calling came with a price, but it also comes with power, real power, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that whispers and still shakes a room, not the kind that seeks attention, but the kind that commands it by simply existing in full alignment. You stepped into a realm where you no longer chase, but attract, where you no longer ask, but declare, where you no longer hide, but radiate. Because chosen ones don't fit in, they form paths. They don't follow trends, they set frequencies. They don't wait to be chosen, they remember they already are.